Yeah, I need to hear Paulo first. Hold. Hey, welcome to Sound of Music, live from Sound of Music. I'm your host, Bruce Smith, and we're here with local musician, but known and loved all over the world, Paulo Franco Londano. How you doing, Paulo?
I'm doing okay, but I can't hear you.
Okay, we'll get there.
I can kind of hear you.
Can you hear me? Hey, hey, hey.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
I could hear more of him, actually. We'll get you going in a minute.
All right.
I'm unembarrassable because I've played lots of shows and lots of horrible things have happened. So I don't mind a little wait here. We'll exchange those kind of those stories in just a bit.
Yeah, exactly. To have a show that goes off without a hitch is
1, 2.
a show that does not exist.
1, 2. Yeah, I'm just not hearing him.
Hey, hey, hey.
Yeah, I hear him now.
Now you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, now we're good.
Okay.
Awesome. So, Paulo, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Interesting day. Got drenched like a cat, hence I'm wearing my San Antonio Spurs pre-distressed hat, which is, of course, black because that's my favorite color.
Right.
But how's your week been?
It's been good. It's like every day is blending into the one another, and there's not really much different going on. It's Monday through Friday I work from home, and about 5 o'clock I switch off the computer, go out and ride my bike, go out walking, or watch some TV and hang out with my wife, and that's about it.
Yeah, I've just been practicing exotic modes and watching NBA basketball.
I've been watching a lot of baseball this year. Hopefully that will last. I know the Capitals are playing. I saw they were winning 2-0 against the Islanders in Game 1 of their opening round playoff. They're facing their old coach, Barry Trotz.
Cool. So, kind of like asking this every week, but I like to ask it anyway, especially at the beginning of the show. What's life been like for you since February, and how do you feel like that's affected you as a musician?
That's a really good question, Bruce, because
Damn right.
No, seriously, because up until the pandemic hit, I had a very, very busy schedule with music, and it's been that way for the last couple of years. I was just playing a lot. Playing usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and sometimes there'd be a weekday show throw in there for good measure. So, and I was dealing with a sick kitty cat at the time. So
I remember.
Trying to be a husband, a kitty doctor, a musician, and a full-time lawyer was really just, it was getting to the point where, I was ragged and exhausted, and I wasn't taking care of myself physically. And to me, this has been sort of a blessing to slow down. I have been playing some gigs. A lot of them got canceled, as for most people. But I do a lot of wineries and breweries that have outdoor facilities, and so I have been doing those. I have not been playing indoors. I'm just not really comfortable being inside of a bar with a whole bunch of people. But it's helped me, and I did a lot of online shows at first. I raised some money for the Camel, for Cary Street Cafe, and I raised a bunch of money for the Richmond SPCA.
Yay!
I've been writing a little bit, but the pandemic, sort of made me stop and take a look at what I was doing and trying to balance more of the thing, so cycling, for example, is something I used to do before I became a musician, and my cycling buddies would always ask me, if you're going to get involved in this music and you had to choose between one or the other, which would it be? And I said, it's not a choice. It's always going to be the music, because it's my number one passion in life. But my wife and I were selling coffee that she's importing. We're importing from Colombia, from
Cool.
one of her cousin's plantations out there, and it's really good. So we were selling it at Carytown Bicycle Shop, or Carytown Bikes. And when I got in there, it made me realize just how much I missed riding my bike. So I got back into it, and now, as I'm not playing as much, I'm finding how much that I'm enjoying that balance more. So as a musician, you know, we really haven't had an opportunity. The band hasn't really had many opportunities to get together. We've done a couple rehearsals over at Doug Thompson's house. He's our bass player. And then we also did a little show on my front porch. Dave got himself a cajon, the drummer, for his birthday. And that was a lot of fun. And it was, to me, really rewarding because it really got back to what music for me is all about, is just having fun with my friends and hanging out and singing songs, just for the sheer love of it. And people were walking up and sitting outside, you know, in our front yard and watching us do it. And it was really one of the most fun times I had as a musician. And, you know, I mean, I do miss getting together on a regular basis with the group, but it's, as far as what the pandemic has done for me, is, you know, kind of closing my full circle rambling here, is made me slow down a little bit, and it's given me an opportunity to spend more time at home, and it's been nice. It's been relaxing.
Okay, so for people who aren't the cool kids yet, but will be shortly, what is the name of your band project?
So the name of the band is Paulo Franco and the Freightliners, and we bill ourselves as Latin Americana. It's a fusion of old school country, old school classic rock, and Latin music. Because, like, for people that don't know, my mother and father are from Colombia, South America, and I grew up in this country as a first-generation American, and I was born and raised here, so English is my native language, but I grew up speaking Spanish. It was my first language at home, and now that I'm married to a woman from Colombia, I pretty much have to speak Spanish at home all the time.
Keeping the skills sharp.
Exactly. It's great, man. I mean, being bilingual is really good. It's a good mental workout. For many years, when I would go down to Colombia, I'd start getting a headache after a couple days just because it was really hard, because I was literally just I was saying something inside my head and translating it in real time while I was speaking it, and it got kind of rough. Now I don't even have to think about it, just because, I mean, Sonia and I have been together for 13 years, and that's our predominant language at home.
My wife's parents are German, so she's fluent in German, and if I have to speak it, I have to think, but I can recognize most of what she's saying. But most of what she says around the house usually isn't too complimentary regarding me or some trouble the pets have gotten into.
Right.
So. But when we went to Germany, I could understand a lot.
Oh, that's really cool.
So I noticed when I was, first of all, I'll say I think I've known you about 10 years, and I seem to remember that I first met you at the Triple when you were being the lead guitar gunslinger for Grey Gherkin.
Yes, that was your birthday party, as I recall.
Yeah, I got my Thin Lizzy cake that night.
That's right, I remember that cake. Yeah, that was the Triple. I think that was the first time I met you. What was the name of the band that you were playing
That was
in?
the Dregs. That was kind of an old rockabilly project.
That's right.
I remember you had a sweet Mesa Boogie rolled into the place, and I was like very jealous.
Yeah, I actually got rid of that amp a while back. I know. I'm kind of bummed that I did, because it was a really good amp.
Well, I found I've been shedding amps if they weigh more than, say, 30 pounds now. Like the old man, guitar in one hand, amp in the other these days. That's the way to go.
Exactly.
So anyway, going back to that, I know some things about you, but when I was reading through your website, I saw that you grew up in Washington, and now that you've been in Richmond, what difference do you see between the two cities, aside from size, obviously?
Well, I mean, that's really the biggest one. I'll tell you, I came to Richmond originally in the mid-'80s to study law at the University of Richmond. And when I first got here, I was not sure that I wanted to stay here, because I really miss Washington. I had a lot of friends up there. And then after about my first semester and I started settling into life here, I really grew so fond of the city that when I graduated from law school and finished my clerkship at the Supreme Court, I really wanted to stay, but I didn't get any job offers down here. So I went back to DC, where I'd gotten some job offers, and took a job working in Fairfax County. And then I met a woman up there, and I got married up there, and she decided to go back to school, and so she went to VCU, and we were talking about that. She went to design school here for interior design, and I kind of warned her. I said, look, I'm thrilled that you want to do this, but I just need to warn you about Richmond. They're still fighting the Civil War, and it's a very odd little place, and it can be provincial at times. If you ignore all that stuff, it's for me, it's great, and I can't wait to get back. So we moved back, and after about 3 or 4 years, she just wasn't happy here and wanted to move, and it was pretty clear at that point that our lives were kind of going off in different directions, because she wanted to live in a really big city, and there's no way I was going to do that again. So I wound up staying here and remarried, and been in my house for 22 years. We came back in 1998, so I've been in Richmond for 22 years and lived in that house for over 22 years, and I love it here. I think the best thing about Richmond for me is you are living in a big city. There's a lot of cool things to do around here, but it's the size. I mean, just to give you an idea, when you live in Washington, and people ask you how far away something is, it's always expressed as a function of time and not distance. Like, hey, how far is that new restaurant that's opening up? Well, it's about 30 minutes, but if you go during rush hour, it can take you up to 45. I'm like, well, that's not really what I asked.
Yeah, you can, if you're decently located around here, you can get everywhere pretty fast.
Yeah, and I think the city, also is a very transient city, because of with politics being the big game in town, there's a lot of changeover every 4 to 8 years, and when you go out, people really, it can be a little superficial at first. Like, people always want to know where you're from, and like, people would have a hard time believing that I was from Washington. I said, no, I'm from D.C. Like, no, before you got here. I'm like, well, actually, I was born in Georgetown University Hospital, and I've lived in Northern Virginia all my young life, so I'm really from here. I grew up around here. Like, oh, wow, I didn't think anybody was actually from here. And then it's not, people want to know who you work for, what you can do for their careers, and I kind of get the feeling that people, I don't want this to come out sounding the wrong way, but I think people are a little warmer here, a little bit more genuine in knowing about who you are as a person, as opposed to what you do for a career. And I love that aspect, and you can be a big fish in a smaller pond too. I mean, it's great when I go out and run into people all the time. I mean, like, for example, even in my own neighborhood, I was going to go hang out with a friend of mine in the neighborhood last night, and on the way out, I ran into somebody that used to book gigs at Home Team Grill many, many, many years ago, and he and I stayed friends on Facebook. Turns out that his mom owns the house across the street for one of my friends and neighbors is renting, and so he was out there. And then I was driving another block to get to my friend's house. I ran into the veterinarian that used to live there. She was just hanging outside her house, getting ready to talk to her ex-husband, and so we get to chit-chat a little bit. But it's, for me, like, going out and running into people that I know is just one of the best aspects about being in Richmond. It's just, that never really happened in D.C., and then, if you're a lawyer in D.C., so is everybody else, so it really wasn't, You can't swing a cat in the air by its tail and not hit about 15 or 20 lawyers every time you go any city block, especially on K Street, where I used to work for
I'd really like to see an empirical science demonstration of that.
It's just amazing. And I like where I live. Where it's in Woodland Heights, which is that little neighborhood directly across from downtown, just off the banks of the James River. A comparable house in Northern Virginia would cost 3 to 4 times what I paid for my house. So it's just, the cost of living here is better. The traffic is manageable. There's still a lot of cool things to do, and all the things that, they used to say that Richmond was a big city, it was about to turn the corner, things were going to get better, and then that never really happened, and then it finally did, with the brewery scene and then the food scene, and Richmond all of a sudden became the place to be, to come on the map. Forbes magazine was writing about us, travel magazines were calling us one of the top 10 destinations in the world, and so, I feel really blessed to be living here. I always say that D.C. is my hometown, but Richmond is my home.
Well, I grew up here aside from a 10-year sojourn in North Carolina for graduate school, but I will believe that Richmond has rocketed into the future when the Squirrels finally get their new stadium. I will see that as a sign of progress after
Yes.
15 years of them being promised that.
Amen. Yeah, that would be cool to have them play in a new stadium.
But let's get back to you. So what made you turn from being a lead guitar ace to being a Renaissance man, singer-songwriter?
Actually, it was getting involved in the Lost Souls. It goes back to the first band that I played in was a band called the Silverback Blues Burners, and then it got shortened to the Silverbacks. And that was a project that had been formed by my friend Jim McCauley, who is the ethics counsel for the Virginia State Bar. And when I applied for the job there 15 years ago, I had put that I played guitar on my resume, and Jim jokingly went to Barbara Williams, who was the bar counsel at the time, and said, "You need to hire this guy Paulo because I need a guitar player for my band." And so I actually wound up getting the job, and then Jim approached me one day and let me know that he was going to be playing some Christmas carols at the Christmas party that year in 2005, and so he asked me to bring my guitar, and we played some Christmas carols, and then we started playing some Dead songs together, and he said, "Hey, I've got this band, and we're looking for a guitar player. Are you interested?" And I said, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, just come on over and hang out, and we'll jam." And next thing you know, I wound up getting the gig with the Silverbacks, and so we were playing blues and covers, and we were asked to do one of the local events at the National in 2008, and a band that was playing there was the Atkinsons. And Jim and I had gotten there early, and Jamie and Dickie Wood of the Atkinsons were hanging out in the green room. And so I asked them, "Hey, do you guys want to have a beer with us? Come on over." So we struck up a conversation and struck up a friendship from that point. And when I saw them play, they were doing original music. And like, man, that's really cool. Like, I would like to do that. And their guitar player, Dan Sessler, was also playing with Gray at the time in the Lost Souls, and was going to a wedding down in Tennessee and couldn't make a gig. And so Gray asked me if I would be interested in filling in for Dan. And I said, "Well, I'm not anywhere near as good a guitar player as Dan is, but why not?" So that's how I got involved with Gray. And then I wrote a song that we used to do together called "Whiskey Mend My Broken Heart." And I just decided that I really wanted to do more of that. And so, at some point, we kind of parted ways. Gray and I did. And I reached out to some people to get together and start doing my own record. And since we'd worked with Pedro Aida before, we actually recorded it at Sound of Music. We did our first record. We did some recording with Pedro, and then that's how that band got together. We used to be called the Roteros, and then
That's right.
the lineup has just evolved over the years with people coming and going. And you know how bands are.
Now, was the first album, I think, was that like by
the Light of a Paper Moon, right?
Exactly. And the newest album was The Last Card.
The Last Card, yeah, that came out in 2016. I recorded that with Bob Roop at
Bob.
Pine and Plaster Studios, yeah.
Now, was that exciting for you? Because I know from past conversations and being with you at a Walter Salas Humera gig that I know you must have been a big Silos fan. Was it exciting for you to record with Bob?
Well, it was because so the two bands that turned me on in law school were the Silos and the House of Freaks. And I got turned on to both bands by high school friends. So one of my high school buddies had read an article in Rolling Stone that I think it was like a little blurb. It was "What's on your turntable?" And they asked the guys in REM what they were listening to, and they said, "There's this band from Florida called the Silos, and they've just put out this record called Cubit that's unbelievable." So my buddy Kevin Leahy bought it. And he called me up one day and said, "Look, man, you've got to listen to this record." I said, "Go out and buy it. If you don't like it, I promise you I'll give you your money back." So I put it on the turntable, and as soon as I heard the first notes for Tennessee Fire, I was absolutely hooked with these guys. And I remember when they came to Richmond on the Bird tour, and I started talking to Walter in Spanish, and Bob was sitting next to him, and so Walter turns to Bob and says, "Hey, this is Bob," and Bob's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And that was the only conversation I had with him. And then another friend of mine was in San Francisco at the time, And one of his college roommates had been turned on to the House of Freaks. So my buddy Paul calls me up and says, hey, my roommate Matt turned me on to this band from Richmond. You should check them out. They're called the House of Freaks. And I listened to Tantilla and fell in love with that record. Those two bands were my favorite bands. I mean, and those are two of my favorite records of all time. So when I was recording with Bob for the first time, he invited Johnny Hott to play drums on some of my tracks.
Sweet.
And I was just beside myself. And then on the last card, I actually got to use Brian's 335 to record a couple of the tracks. And to me, it was just one of those special moments. And, it's funny that you bring it up because the friend I was going to hang out with last night was Bob. Bob and Jeremy Simmons and I were all sitting in Bob's backyard eating some smoked chicken and drinking a couple beers. And I was telling Bob, how special this was for me because, I mean, I worship those guys, man. I mean, I love them so much. And here I am, I consider you a friend, and now I'm hanging out, having drinks with you. And so when I heard that first Silas record, I mean, it was a game changer for me. And he says, well, funny you should mention that. I've got something for you. So he literally had just found it, but he gave me the license plate that was on the Silos tour van. It's a Florida plate with 88 tags on it. He says, I want you to have this.
That's an awesome moment.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was the Bird album, which I did see that show in Richmond, by the way. Bob was on fire that night.
It was such a great show.
It was a great show. I think the Johnson family opened.
Yes.
Yeah, and so, but was it? I remember on that album, I believe there's a song called "Porque No."
Yes, exactly.
And I have no idea. I mean, I do now, but back then, Spanish was a complete mystery to me. I was like, wow, this is a great song, and I don't even know what the heck it says, but I'm really enjoying it. And I know from following you and talking to you that it was always important to you, but your Colombian heritage has become more important to you. And I know you've done some songs in Spanish, and I was wondering how you feel like connecting more. And I know you've gone back to Colombia and played music too. How's that affected you as a musician, connecting more and more with that?
Well, it's definitely something that I had always thought about in the back of my mind, and obviously hearing Walter singing in Spanish and hearing Los Lobos sing in Spanish has always been a big influence. And when I started going to Jazz Fest in the mid-'90s, I really got into a band that's still active down there called the Iguanas, and those guys are all first and second generation, Mexican Americans, and they do a lot of stuff in Spanish. They bring a lot of Tejano influence into their music. And when I started writing music, I just one day I came up with an idea for a tune, and I was coming back from a gig, and it was about Colombia, and it was about the city of Medellin, and I started just writing stuff in Spanish, and the next thing you know, it came out, and to me, it's been great because it does help me keep connected with my roots and my family, and being able to play music down there just means the world for me because it's great to be able to sing to them in Spanish, but they also really, really dig the English music too. I remember I went down to visit my mom one year, and I want to say it was 2016. It was November of 2016. And I got tickets to go see Guns N' Roses in Medellin, Colombia, the most dangerous band in the world and supposedly the most dangerous city in the world. It's who's going to miss an opportunity like that? So I took my daughter to go see the show. And the next morning, my mom cut out a review of the concert by the music journalist for the largest newspaper in Colombia called El Colombiano. And I noticed that the guy's last name was Londoño, which was my mother's maiden name. So I reached out to him via Twitter, and I sent him some of my music. Hey, that's great. Next time you're down in Colombia, let me know, and we'll put you on the air here. So we got together, and I started asking him, do you think some of this American music would go over well? And he said, listen, I'm going to do something when we come back from this break, and we're going to play a little game. I'm going to play you some music from some Colombian musicians, and you tell me what you think. He didn't tell me anything about them, but he played 4 different bands, 2 blues guys. There was a band that sounded like it was straight out of a Dallas honky tonk, and then another band that sounded like it could have been straight out of New Orleans. And I asked him, I was you're telling me that these guys are all Colombians? Yep, they're all based here, and they're doing this kind of music. So he said, do you think you might find a little bit of interest in your music down here? I guess so. So I started going down there, and every time I go back to visit my mom, I go and play with my buddy Pablo Alzate. we toured back in 2017, and that was a lot of fun. It was just really cool, going out and playing music in bars and clubs, and we got to play at this really neat museum in a little town called Roldanillo, which to me was the best gig because, I mean, the citizens of this town, the place was packed. There must have been like 150 people there, and they were all glued to every note. And like at the end of it, I mean, they were calling us both maestros. I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then we all went back to one of Sonia's friends. Her brother owns a bar there, and we went back to this really cool bar and started drinking all night long with the people who came to the show, and it was really fun.
Cool. Well, on that note, why don't you favor us with some songs?
Okay.
Let me do my station break. Hey, we're here live from Sound of Music. I'm Bruce, your host. We're here 3 out of 4 Wednesdays every month at 6 o'clock live on Wednesday. And tonight our guest is Paulo Franco Landano, and he's going to play some songs for us here. Thank you, Paulo.
I'm going to do actually one in Spanish. All right, John, are you getting this? All right. So this song is off of the last card. It's actually the very first song. Allá en un bar por la calera conocí a Katrina y su calavera. La vi bajando por la escalera, fresquita como la primavera. Se sentó en la silla a mi lado. Su rostro lindo y sagrado parpadeó chispas de pecado. Su sonrisa me dejó hechizado. Me ofreció una copa de tequila. Ay, 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 ay. De repente apareció neblina. Ay, 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 ay. Katrina y su calavera, mujer más bella y hechicera, con ojos como las estrellas. Mujer más bella y hechicera. No sé si era fantasía o fantasma que vive en las pesadillas. Belleza hecha de la costilla. Su encanto me puso de rodillas. Por fin Katrina me dio un beso. Ay, 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 ay. El cual sentí hasta por mis huesos. Ay, 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 ay. Katrina y su calavera, mujer más bella y hechicera, con ojos como las estrellas, mujer más bella y hechicera.
That was some very nice finger picking.
Thank
Very
you.
beautiful, Paula. Can you tell us a little bit about that song?
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting, and as you and I spoke before we got started about, you know, the songs and what they mean, and whether people, you know, especially somebody who doesn't know what you're saying because they don't speak the language. And there's definitely two different schools of thought. Some people are like, man, I don't want to know what it's about because I just want to I just feel this mood, and I don't want you to, you know, let me have my mood, and I don't want to know what it's about. And other people are like, yeah, well, what is it about? And it's, if you knew how to speak Spanish, I mean, it's literal. It's not. It's a story about a guy who is sitting at a bar, and he sees this beautiful woman walking down the stairs, and she's carrying a skull like Hamlet carried in his dead father's skull around with him. And she sits next to him and buys him a shot of tequila, and fog rolls in, and he suddenly becomes enchanted by this spell that she's cast over him, and he's fallen head over heels in love with her, but can't figure out whether she's an angel or a demon. And the song came to me from a beer, actually, that's brewed at Licking Hole Creek. It's called La Calavera Catrina.
Ah.
And La Calavera Catrina is a famous Mexican painting. It's a lithograph that was done by an artist named Jose Posada in the early 1900s. And it's a woman, she's a skeleton, but she's wearing this giant floral bonnet, like something like you might see at the Kentucky Derby or, you know, Foxfield races. And that sort of informed all the iconography for the Mexican Day of the Dead. You know, like you see the skeletons and, you know, all their different clothing. And so the beer itself is it's a Belgian triple that has lime zest in it and is aged in tequila barrels. And when you first sip it, you get a big lime taste to it, and then this shot, like you feel like you've done a shot of tequila. There's this explosion of tequila flavor in your mouth. So I started thinking, like, this beer is not what it seems to be. It pretends to be a beer, but it really is more like tequila. So I started thinking about that in the context of the Calavera Catrina, and then I thought, well, how about writing a song about a woman named Katrina who carries around a skull? And that's how I came up with the song.
That's interesting. So what do you have for us next?
Let's see. This is going to be, so we're in the middle of recording a new record. We were last year, and then got sidelined a little bit, and then the pandemic hit when we were getting ready to get this thing going again. But then that got sidelined a little bit as well. So, but we're recording over with Jeremy Simmons at Elephant Ear Studios, and
Cool.
so we're gonna put some Spanish stuff on it and a whole bunch of new tunes that I've written over the last couple years. And this one's called "If I Had to Run." butlers and Romeo. But in the calm before a storm, the eye of a hurricane, it's hard to find a point, shelter from the rain. If I had to run, if I had to run, could you leave it all behind? Would you leave it all behind? Run away with me. Nothing I can do to keep the wolves at bay. They gathered in the woods, and a full moon's on its way. I hear a distant howl, coming after me. So I hope you'll take my hand and run away with me. If I had to run, if I had to run, could you leave it all behind? Would you leave it all behind? Run away with me. Run away with me.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Hey, Paulo, what is that really nice effect you have going on there?
So I'm using a Blue Sky by Strymon, and it's a shimmer.
Nice. Strymon
Yeah.
makes good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. I used to have that on my electric board, and then I was looking for some pedals to put on this for this acoustic rig, and I saw a video of some guy playing acoustic guitar through that Strymon with that shimmer effect. I'm like, oh, I know where that pedal's going.
So, what you got next?
So this is another song that's going to be on the new record, and it's actually one that's finished. And it's a song that incorporates a Latin groove, but it's in English. And I wrote this next song. It's called "I Don't Want to Let You Go." I took my wife to see the Mavericks at the National in 2016, and I was just, I mean, that's another band. Like those guys, you know, Raul Malo is a first-generation American. His parents were born in Cuba, and he grew up speaking Spanish like me. And so he does some stuff in Spanish as well. So I got home that night and said, man, I want to write a song that sounds like the Mavericks. And I came up with this next tune. It was really cool because, well, I'll talk about that after the song. Cool. Let me see if I get this in tune here.
It's a humid
Aha.
day.
I was right.
Once again, we're here live from Sound of Music Studios with fabulous musical artist Paulo Franco Landano.
All right, this is called I Don't Want to Let You Go. Was it so easy to forget? You didn't even break a sweat when you slammed the door and walked out on me. I let a love turn to rust. I let it blow away with the dust. You gave me every chance and I threw it away. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna. Now everything you say is true. Still, I wish you wouldn't be so cruel. You gave me every chance to make up my mind. Now you're gone and won't be back. I watch you leave on a one-way track. I would sell my soul to turn back time. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna. Oh, no, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna let you go. No, 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 I don't wanna. Thank you.
Nice. Now, I definitely hear the Mavericks in that. some of the melody and also the way you were ending some of your vocal lines with the extra vibrato.
Yeah, so I got to meet Raul Malo. I entered, well, I donated $100 to WNRN during their fall fund drive without realizing that if you donated $100 that particular day, you'd be entered for a sweepstakes that I had no idea I had been entered into and actually won. And it was um, two passages on the Sandy Beach's Delbert McClinton cruise, the Sandy Beach's 26. And it featured the Band of Heathens, the Mavericks, Delbert McClinton, Seth Walker, Marcia Ball, Shiny Rib, the guy from the Gourds, and a whole bunch of other really Wayne Toops and Zyda Cajun, and it was really cool. So we went on this cruise in January, and Raul Malo was just sitting off to the side, and I walked up. I was wearing one of my Colombian sombreros, and we struck up a conversation. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting there talking to him one-on-one for about a half an hour about life in general and growing up first generation and being a musician and a lawyer, and just, I mean, it was the coolest thing in the world. And then like a day later, he was just sitting there with his manager. So I said, "Hey man, how you doing?" He's like, "Hey, I'm doing all right." It's like, "Mind if I join you?" He's like, "No, not at all." So we sat down another 25 minutes just hanging out talking to Raul Malo.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. He's a really, really nice guy, and they're getting ready to put out a new record. It's dropping in a couple weeks, I think. It's called En Español, and if you think he's got a beautiful voice when he's singing the American country music, just wait till you hear him sing in Spanish, man. He takes his voice to a whole new level. It's incredible.
Now, Paulo, I'm glad you had a good experience with him and that he's a nice guy, because I'm not. Because I'm going to admit to you, I lied to you because I told you I was going to ask you one question after you finished your musical portion, but I'm going to ask you two.
Okay.
And I kind of wanted to know, what is different as far as, I don't know whether you're thinking about like the way the syllables stretch out, the vowels or consonants the words end in, but what are some differences, or are there any, when you're writing lyrics in Spanish versus English?
Well, it's a little bit harder for me to write in Spanish because as much as I am bilingual and fluent, I read it, I write it, and I understand it 100%, and I'm as comfortable with it as I am speaking English. It's not my native language, so the hard part for me is actually I come up with a really cool idea for a lyric, and there's a verb in it, and then I'm like, oh man, I can't use that because either the gender normative isn't matching or the verb tense isn't going to create the rhyme that I want. So like for me to write the rhyme, I'd have to use the feminine form when it calls for the masculine form, and it would just sound really odd. So that's a struggle for me. And the other part of it is just coming up with ideas and like having to translate things. Like if I'll come up with an idea in English, and then while I'm in the middle of writing a Spanish song, so maybe translating it sometimes gets a little bit complicated. It takes me a little bit longer to write in Spanish than it does in English. But I really enjoy it, and I really like playing it a lot, and so do the guys in the band. They love it, and we usually get a lot of questions about it from people who come up and ask us, why don't we do more of it? And I mean, I'm seriously considering releasing a whole album in Spanish at some point.
See, I think Spanish sounds, not understanding it, sounds so beautiful in music, the way the words glide at the ends and all. And, for all I know, it could be a song about, what detergent to use, but it sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy singing in Spanish a lot. We've added a couple of covers to our repertoire. You remember that movie Kill Bill Volume 2? Mm-hmm. That song at the very end when the credits are rolling, it's got that little It's a little Mexican folk song called La Malagueña Salerosa, and Robert Rodriguez put a band together called Chingon to record that rock version of it, and I always wanted to do that. So we worked on it. We do that now in the repertoire. We usually close our shows out with it. And the other song that I'm doing now that's in English and in Spanish, that's a cover, is a song that my friend Slim Stanton suggested that I do a long time ago, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it until I heard Raul Malo sing it. But it's Freddie Fender's Before the Next Teardrop Falls. And the second verse is in Spanish, so that's a lot of fun to do. And I think I'm going to maybe try to incorporate a couple other cover songs by some of the artists that I mentioned, like, the Mavericks. We were in the middle of working on one of their songs in Spanish before the pandemic hit. And I'd like to throw in something by Los Lobos and maybe do another cover, like a more traditional, like Colombian folk song or something like that, and put our spin on it.
Cool. So I know we touched on some of this a little, since we're wrapping up. I know we touched on a few of these things earlier, but just to reiterate, excuse me, what's next musically for you?
Well, we definitely going to finish up this record that we've been working on. I've got a couple songs that are in the rotation now that have not been recorded, and we've got 7 where the basic band tracks are down. I mentioned possibly doing a Spanish record. I'd like to do that at some point. At this point, for the foreseeable future, it's just going to be riding it out with, doing outdoor shows for the foreseeable future, playing some of the wineries and the breweries. If things get better, we might consider going and doing some indoor shows. But that's pretty much it for the short run. I mean, I definitely want to get the record out and just continue writing, and continue playing.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, I'm Bruce Smith, your host here Live from Sound and Music every Wednesday. Hey, as a bonus feature, this Saturday night we have a live stream here from a really good hard rock band called Tell. So check that out. I think it's going to be 7 or 8 o'clock. You can find the event on our Facebook page. But once again, thanks to the fabulous Paulo Franco Londano.
Bruce, thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
You're most welcome. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Are we done? Am I off the air? Can I cuss now?